warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ita Septiana, and then my partner Mbak Utami Soifah. We are from Group 4. Today we will present our material about the types of quantitative research. And the first explanation will be explained by me. So, in the last two presentations, we have already discussed about the quantitative and its variable, its characteristics, and so on. So, I will remind you about a bit the definition about the quantitative research, where it's defined as the systematic investigation of the phenomena through the collection of quantifiable data and the implementation of statistical, mathematical, and then computational techniques. There are three types of quantitative research. The first is descriptive research, the second is correlational research, and then the third is causal comparative research. Okay, the first type is descriptive research, which means it is used to describe the basic features of the data in a study. It is provide a simple summary about the sample and then the measure. The purpose of this research is to provide a summary of the sample and the measures done on a study. And then there are the major characteristics of a single variable in descriptive research, where the first characteristic is the distribution. Distribution is a summary of the frequency of individual values or a range of values for a variable. And then the second is the central tendency. Central tendency of a distribution is the estimate of the center of a distribution of values. So there are the estimates, three types estimate distribution of values. The first is mean, the second is median, and then the third is modulus. Means that the result of the add of all of the numbers divided by the number of the numbers itself, so the result is called mean. And then the second is a median. The median is the middle values in the list of the number. And then the third is mode. Mode is the values that the most frequently appear in the list. And then the third is the dispersion. The dispersion is refers to the spread of the values around the central tendency. So there are two main concerns in the dispersion. The first is the range. The range is the highest values minus the lowest values. So the result is called the range between the values. And then the second is the standard deviation. Standard deviation is the relation that a set of the score has to the mean of the sample. Okay, and then we come to the explanation about the strengths and weaknesses of the descriptive research, where the strength is in this research we can provide an in-depth view of any topic we might want to study, and then the level of the detail that we can find in the descriptive research is extremely valuable. And then the weaknesses of this research is we cannot determine the cause and effect of the relationship from the descriptive research. We also have to be very careful of the reactivity in this type of research. Okay, we'll come to the next type of the quantitative research. The second type is correlational research, where correlational research is a statistical test to determine the tendency or pattern for two or more variables or two sets of data to vary consistently. And then the purpose of this research is to provide an opportunity for us, for the researcher, to predict the scores and explain the relationship among variables. And then in correlational research, they also have a three main characteristics. The first is display of a score. So there are two general score display in correlational research. The first is scatter plots and then the matrix. The scatter plots is like a graph or a graphic that share in like a variable x and then variable y, and then there's a line in the middle of it, so it's called the scatter plots. And then the second is matrix. Matrix more like the mathematical way, mathematical display. So it's like this one like have 1, 2, 3 A, B, C or something, yeah, and then the line of it, so it's called matrix. And then the second is associations between score. So in the association between score, there are description of form and then the strength. It means that the strength, form, and then the direct direction. Okay. The form means that it is the association linear or not. So form of the result, the display of the score, so is it linear or not, so it is called the form. And then we have direction. Direction is the correlational positive. If the correlation or the association of the correlation details is positive or negative. So there are two types of correlation results. There are positive correlation and then negative correlation, where the positive correlation means that when the correlation present when the score on two variables tend to move in the same direction, and then the negative correlation is opposite. So it's when the two variables tend to move in the opposite direction, so it's negative. So yeah, so how to prove it? The way to prove it is called direction. And then the third is strength. The strength is like does the association appear to be strong or moderately strong or weak. So the result, sometimes the result, not sometimes, I think it is like it's a must for us to put the result of correlational research in a percent way, like is it strong correlation or moderately or weak. So it has a score for it, like strong, weak, and then moderate. And then the last is the multiple variable analysis. So this is the partial correlation and then multiple regression. Okay, where the partial correlation is the correlation of one variable with another after it's statistically removing the effect of a third variable. So it will result of the first variable after after it removing to the third variable. And then the multiple correlation is like the relationship between one variable and then the set of the variables. And then the next explanation about the strengths and weaknesses of the correlational research, where it will be explained by my partner, Mbak Utami Saifa. Time is yours.
Thank you, Dita, for the time given to me. I will continue for the presentation. Now, it's about the strengths and the weaknesses of correlational research. The first, the strength of correlational research is that it can help us understand the complex relationship between a lot of different variables. This type of research allows us to make predictions and can tell us if two variables are not related, and thus searching for a cause-effect relationship between the two is a huge waste of time. And then the next about the weaknesses. The correlation is not the same as causation. Even if two variables are related to one another, it does not mean we can say for certain how the cause and effect relationship work. Now, this is the third type of quantitative research. It is called causal comparative research. The purpose of this type is to determine the cause or consequences of differences that already exist between or among group of individuals. This type of research is also known as ex post facto research. Okay, there are some characteristics of causal comparative research. The first is it attempts to identify cause and effect relationship. The next, it involves two or more group variables. The third, it involves making comparison. And then the next, individuals are not randomly selected and assigned to two or more groups. And the next characteristic is that it cannot manipulate the independent variables. And the last one characteristic is it's less costly and it's time consuming. Well, now we talk about the design of causal comparative research. There are some points for this design. The first is the researchers select two groups of participants. They are the experimental and the control group. And the next, the group may differ in two ways. That is, one group possesses a characteristic that the other does not have, or each group has the characteristic but to differing degrees or amounts. Okay, there are two types of causal comparative research design. They are retrospective causal comparative research and prospective causal comparative research. Okay, I will explain one by one. The first, retrospective causal comparative research. It requires that a researcher begin investigating a particular question when the effect had already occurred. And the researchers attempt to determine whether one variable may have influenced another one. And the next, prospective causal comparative research. It occurs when a researcher initiates a study beginning with the causes, and then it is determined to investigate the effect of the condition. Okay, comparing these two types, retrospective causal comparative research design are much more common than prospective causal comparative design. Okay, everybody, there are some basic approach of causal comparative research. The first, the researchers observe that two groups differ on some variable and then attempt to find the reason for or the result of these differences. And causal comparative studies attempt to identify cause and effect relationship. These studies typically involve two or more groups and one independent variable. Causal comparative studies also involve comparison. Talking about the retrospective and prospective, it is the same as earlier. I explained that retrospective causal comparative studies are far more common in educational research. Now, I will give you the example of causal comparative research. The title is The Relationship Between Years of Experience and Job Satisfaction. For causal comparative design, we have two hypotheses. The alternative hypothesis is teachers with high level of experience will be more satisfied with their job than teachers with low level of experience. And for the null hypothesis, teachers with high level of experience will be equally satisfied with their job when compared to teachers with low level of experience. And here we have two variables. The first dependent variable, that is job satisfaction, And the second one is independent variable, that is years of experience. And there are two levels for this, that is high and low. Okay, that's for the example. Next we continue for the analysis of the data. This type of research involves a variety of descriptive and inferential statistics. The most commonly used for descriptive statistics are mean and standard deviation. As explained earlier, that the mean indicates the average performance of a group for some measure of variable, and for standard deviation, it indicates how spread out the set of score is around the mean. So it is to know whether the scores are relatively homogeneous or heterogeneous around the mean. Okay, the next about the analysis data. The commonly used for inferential statistics is we have the t-test, analysis of variance, and t-square. Okay, for the t-test, it is used to determine whether the means of two groups statistically different from one another. About the analysis of variance, it is used to determine if there is significant difference among the means of three or more groups. And for chi-square, it is used to compare group frequencies. Well, there is also some limitation of the use for this type of research. The first is there must be a pre-existing independent variable. For example, of years of study, gender, age, and etc. And also there must be active variable. It means variable which the researchers can manipulate. For example, instructional technique, the length of session, or number of study sessions. Okay, that's all for the topic today. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.